Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm going to do my very first new releases video. So I originally intended to do this for May through July, and then my list got really long, and then the midway point of May rolled around. So I am actually going to still do books for May, even if they've already come out at this point. I'm going to do May and June in this video, and then I'm going to do another new releases video for July and August as well, because there's so many amazing books coming out in the next couple of months, and I'm really excited for so many of them. So I wanted to make sure that I got the chance to talk about as many as possible, and I'm totally missing some. This is not by any means an extensive list, but these are just some of the books that flagged up on my radar. So if I am missing some books from this list, or if you have books that you're really excited about, definitely let me know, because I want to add them to my own list. I want to add them to my pre-orders. I want to pick them up when they come out. So these books are in order of publication date. It's not in order of, like, you know, what I'm most excited for, least excited for. These are all books I'm looking forward to, and these are in the order that they come out in. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the month of May. One last really quick note is that these are going to be the UK publication dates, because although I have an American accent, I do actually live in the UK, so publication dates may vary depending on where you're from. I'm going to start this list out really strong with one of my most highly anticipated books of this year. This came out on the 14th of May, and I managed to get my pre-order early. It just shipped a little bit early, and I'm super excited to finish up some of the books that I'm currently reading so I can get started on We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal. This book looks amazing. Not only is it super pretty and super shiny, and it does have a little hidden thing under the cover, it also has a glorious spine. This book is so beautiful. But this book looks really interesting because it is a YA fantasy based on ancient Arabia. So our main character is Zafira, and she is a kind of figure known as the Hunter. She disguises herself as a boy in order to kind of hunt and feed her people. And we also have Nasir, who is the Prince of Death, who assassinates those foolish enough to defy his autocratic father, the Sultan. So if she's exposed as a girl, she's gonna die, and probably by his hand. So at some point they're gonna have to team up. I believe they have to find an artifact because war is looming. So she's going to try to restore through magic to her people, and he's going to try to claim this artifact for his father. This looks great. This looks amazing, and some of my friends have already read this. I'm super jealous of anyone who got an ARC of this, because it looks amazing. It looks really good, and it's just the kind of book that I really love. The next book that I have on my list is another one that comes out on the 14th of May. This is The Candle and the Flame by Nafiza Azad. This book sounds like it's one that is going to mix kind of fantasy and myth with historical fiction, which I am 100% here for. I'm super excited to read this. So this book takes place in a city called Noor, which is a kind of thriving stop on the Silk Road, and it is a city that has a recent trauma. A kind of tribe of jinn have slaughtered the city's entire population except for 3 humans, one of which is our main character named Fatima. According to the description of this book, because my pre-order hasn't shipped yet, even though it is out right now, the book is a immersive tale of magic and the importance of names, with fiercely independent women and the work for harmony within a city of 1,000 cultures and cadences. This sounds like it's going to be an absolutely astonishing book. I'm really excited for this one, and it has a beautiful cover, and it's just going to be, it's just one of those books that I feel I know immediately is going to be amazing, and I'm super excited to get my copy. The next book that I have comes out on the 15th of May, and it's one that I'm really excited for because it is not just a retelling, but it is a continuation of a classic fairy tale. This is Stepsister by Jennifer Donnelly. This book follows Isabel, and she is the younger of Cinderella's 2 stepsisters, and I believe this takes place after kind of Cinderella's story is over, and Isabel has to face down the demons that drove her cruel treatment of Ella, Cinderella, and challenge her own fate and maybe redefine the very notion of beauty. I think that this is going to be a really interesting one. It's going to be a really interesting take on a kind of tired fairy tale. Not that Cinderella's not an amazing fairy tale, but I feel like we get so many retellings of Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast. It'll be really nice to see something really different from that. So this is going to be a really, really interesting book. I have Dax trying to climb up my leg right now, and it hurts! Oh my god. This is going to be a really fun one. I think this is going to be one that might fly under the radar a little bit, but will be one to definitely check out. Next book that I have comes out on the 16th of May, and this is one that I'm really looking forward to. It's a fantasy debut, I believe. This author writes in historical fiction, but not in fantasy until now. So this is The Smoke and the Glass by Chris Humphries. So this is the start of a new fantasy series, and it takes place in a world that has 3 realms, and each knows nothing of the other, and they all have immortality involved somehow. So in Corinthium, a decadent, endlessly lived elite, which is a hard thing to say, run the world for profit and power. In wintry Midgarth, where immortals are revered as deities, something or someone is killing the gods. While in Omatep, there is only one immortal, for he has murdered every other. Yet there's a 4th and hidden land where savage tribes have united under the prophecy of the One, and now they plan to conquer the world, unless a broken soldier, a desperate mother, and a crippled god can stop them. This sounds really, really interesting to me. I have heard that it kind of feels like it harkens back to classic fantasy, which is something that I'm always interested in, because I really, really enjoy classic fantasy and I enjoy those tropes, and I love the one trope. Like, there's nothing better than that for me. So I think that there is going to be a blog tour for this book coming up soon, so I haven't heard anything about it yet. I haven't heard any reviews for it yet, but I am going to see them soon, so this is one that's definitely on my list. The next 2 books are by the same author, because I had to throw them on here, and it's not going to be a surprise to anyone when I say what these books are. The first one comes out on the 16th of May as well. This is Children of Ruin by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So of course this is the sequel to Children of Time, which is one of my favorite books. You guys are probably sick of me talking about it at this point, but I loved that book. And initially I was not excited about this sequel because, like, I feel like Children of Time has the perfect ending, and I thought it was a standalone. So finding out that it was going to have a sequel was very jarring for me, and I was very upset for a very long time. But then the pub date like kind of started getting closer and closer, and I started getting more and more excited. So this is one that I'm definitely going to read. I've got my pre-order already and set up, and I'm gonna love it. I know it. It's just gonna be amazing. I'm super, 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 super excited. And the last book in the month of May that I have on my list comes out on the 30th of May, and this is Walking to Aldebaran by Adrian Tchaikovsky as well. So I actually just, like, as of half an hour ago, finished this book from NetGalley, and it's definitely one to check out, although I would maybe suggest getting the Kindle edition because it is about 100 pages long, but it's just an absolute kind of a master class in storytelling, especially because he tells this incredible story with all of these kinds of twists and turns in 100 pages, and it's so good. It's basically about mankind has found a kind of they call it an artifact that is floating just beyond Pluto. It's this huge, like, moon-sized thing. So they launch an expedition to go and see it and discover it and explore it and learn more about it, and our main character is one of the astronauts, and he, when the story opens, has been lost. He's abandoned on this thing in these crypts, and he's trying to find his way back, and it's really good. I really, really enjoyed it. It's real dark but it's excellent, and I thought it was great, so I would highly recommend picking that up on the 30th of May when it comes out. Now we're moving on to the month of June, and I feel like I'm missing stuff from this list, even though it's kind of an extensive list. There's a fair few things on here, but I just know that so much good stuff is publishing in June, July, and August, and I must be missing some, so this is definitely where, if you see something is missing, let me know. The very first book that I have for the month of June actually comes out on the 1st of June, and I am Really excited for this, even though I can't seem to get a reasonably priced copy anywhere. This is Middle Game by Shauna Maguire. Of course, she's the author of the Wayward Children series of novellas, along with a ton of other stuff. I had no idea she'd written quite so much, but I've read her Wayward Children books, which is Every Heart a Doorway and those books. And I love them, and I love her writing style, and I love her fantasy and her imagination. It's just wonderful. So I'm really excited for Middle Game. I know it's a standalone. I know it has nothing to do with the Wayward Children series, and I've not read one of her full-length novels yet. So this follows 3 characters, Roger, Dodger, and Reed. So this book kind of all takes place in a world of alchemy and shadowy organizations and impossible cities, and this is super, super intriguing. So it just says here, God is attainable, pray it isn't attained. So this is one of those really vague synopses that I love, but I'm 110% sold on this book. I'm super, super, super excited to read this, and I'm trying so hard to get a copy of it in the UK, but it's really difficult to find a reasonably priced one, so I'm probably gonna have to like order this after it comes out, which I really like to pre-order stuff, but as long as I get my hands on it, I'm gonna be fine. The next book I have comes out on the 4th of June, and I am so excited for this. This is one I've been waiting on for quite a while, actually, because it sounds wonderful. This is Spin the Dawn by Elizabeth Lim. Spin the Dawn follows Maya, who I may or may not be saying that name wrong, and I apologize if I am, but she is presented with an opportunity to change her fortune. So she dresses as a boy and she travels to the Summer Palace, and she knows that she could lose her life if her secret gets out. However, she is going to risk her life to become the tailor for the Emperor. So the only problem is that she's one of 12 people who are competing for this job. So backstabbing and lies run rampant as the tailors compete in a series of challenges to prove their artistry and skills. Her task is further complicated when she draws the attention of the court magician, whose name is Eden, whose piercing eyes can see straight through her disguise. But nothing can prepare her for the final challenge. She must sew 3 magic gowns for the Emperor's reluctant bride-to-be, from the laughter of the sun, the tears of the moon, and the blood of stars. With this impossible task ahead of her, she embarks on a journey to the far reaches of the kingdom, seeking the sun, the moon, and the stars, and finding more than she could ever imagine. So this book is apparently steeped in Chinese culture. It has a forbidden romance, it has wonderful magic. This sounds great. This sounds like a combination of so many things that I absolutely love, and it reminds me of a lot of fairy tales. So in some of the Cinderella versions, we have these beautiful gowns and dresses that she has to make, and in like East of the Sun, West of the Moon, she has to kind of compete in this crazy competition, and this just sounds so good. I have been sitting here like waiting for June 4th to come around for probably about a year. The next book that I have on this list comes out on the 13th of June, and it's another one that I've been waiting forever to get my hands on. This is A Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. So of course she wrote An Enchantment of Ravens, which is somewhere on my shelf here. It was a big young adult sort of fae fantasy book that came out in 2017, I believe. And I didn't love that book, but I really loved her writing, and I really loved the way that she kind of creates this beautiful imagery in your head. I thought that her descriptions and her kind of imagination was wonderful. It's just fae books aren't necessarily my thing. But A Sorcery of Thorns sounds like exactly my thing because it is magic-wielding librarians, and I cannot wait to read this. So our main character is named Elizabeth, and she has grown up always knowing that sorcery and sorcerers are evil, and she is a foundling in this kind of great library, and she's always been around the kind of tools of sorcery for like grimoires and whatnot. So she hopes to become a warden one day, and that will mean she's charged with protecting the kingdom from the power of these kind of sorcerous objects. So an act of sabotage releases the library's most dangerous grimoire. Her desperate intervention implicates her in the crime, and so she's torn from her home to go and face justice for what she has supposedly done. So there's nowhere for her to turn except to her sworn enemy, who is a sorcerer named Nathaniel Thorne, and his mysterious demonic servant. She finds herself entangled in a centuries-old conspiracy, and not only will the great libraries go up in flame, but the world along with them. And this sounds so good. It sounds like a hate-to-love romance. Apparently it's a slow burn romance. It has magical librarians. It has magical books. Seriously, what more could you want? So all of these books so far have been sci-fi and fantasy, so we're going to change pace a little bit here and go with a contemporary YA book. And this is one that I'm really excited to read because not only does it sound really sweet and really nice, but also the author is a debut author and is a really kind of important person in UK YA. So this is The Paper and Heart Society by Lucy Powery. Lucy has an awesome booktube channel which I can link down below, and she is such an incredible advocate for UK YA and for books and for reading and for classics, which I think is amazing. So she has written her first book, and it's all about loving books and being a teen and finding your place in the world, and it sounds really sweet. So The Paper and Heart Society follows a girl named Tabby Brown, and she's tired of trying to fit in with her classmates. She doesn't want to go to parties at the weekend, she just wants to read her favorite books. So she feels like she hasn't quite found her people. She doesn't feel like she fits in, until she moves to a new town where a book club called the Paper and Heart Society is recruiting. So she's decided she's going to kind of try her luck and throw herself into this. So it says here, enough of her old friends who only talk to her when they need something. It's time for Quidditch-themed fancy dress parties, games like Shut Up and Shakespeare, and lots of chocolate. So it's perfect for fans of Holly Smale and super awkward. So this just sounds really lovely, and I feel like this is the kind of book that I would have loved to have had when I was a teenager, because I feel like I was definitely in a kind of similar position. I kind of, when I was young, way back when, I sort of pushed down my love of reading, and I didn't really talk about books with people because I just didn't quite feel like it was a thing that other people my age were interested in. So I feel like I could have used this book when I was a little teenage Justine. So I'm going to read this book for her, and it sounds really, really sweet and wonderful. The next book that I have on this list comes out on the 18th of June, and I'm really excited for this because I've really enjoyed the author's previous books, and they're also retellings, but they're retellings with kind of a twist. So this is The Girl in Red by Christina Henry. This is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood, and I really enjoyed Lost Boy, which is a retelling of Peter Pan, and The Mermaid, which is a retelling of the Fiji Mermaid, which I don't know if that's a retelling or not. It's kind of an imagining of the Fiji Mermaid. So I loved those books. I really enjoyed them, and I'm really excited for this because while The Mermaid was a kind of historical fiction fantasy book and Lost Boy was a straight up fantasy book, this is a dystopian book, which sounds really, really cool. So it's set in a world where something called the Crisis came that decimated the population and sent those who survived fleeing into quarantine camps that serve as breeding grounds for death, destruction, and disease. So we follow the woman in the red jacket who's kind of making her way in this world. It says here that there are worse threats in the woods than the things that stalk their prey at night. Men with dark desires, weak wills, and evil intents. Men in uniform with classified information, deadly secrets, and unforgiving orders. And sometimes, just sometimes, there's something worse than all of the horrid people and vicious beasts combined. Red doesn't like to think of herself as killer, but she isn't about to let herself get eaten up just because she's a woman alone in the woods. So this sounds great. This sounds like it's going to be super girl powery, which I'm always here for. And I know that it has some disability representation in it, and it just sounds like it's going to be a really cool and kick-ass book. I haven't heard anything about like content warnings for this book or anything, but I am going to be keeping an eye out for some reviews just to see what those are, because Christina Henry's books tend to be really, really dark. So I think this is going to be a really great one. I think this is going to be a really interesting one, and the choice to set it in a kind of post-apocalyptic setting is really, really cool. This brings us to the last book on my list for the month of June. This comes out on the 27th of June, and it is a really, really compelling and interesting sounding YA crime novel. So this is The Sharp Edge of a Snowflake by Siv Sigmastadir. So this book is described as a fierce and feminist Nordic YA thriller, and it follows two characters. We have Hannah, who's been banished from her home in London to the place of eternal punishment for the wicked. No, not hell, but close, Iceland. There she must face a new life working as a journalist for her father's newspaper, a man she barely knows. And then we have Imogen Collins, who has the perfect life as a social media influencer, showing off her glamorous London existence to her adoring fans. But behind the filter lies a dark secret, and she thought she buried it. But the beast is back, a ghost from her past who is threatening to ruin her future. When a man is found murdered at the edge of the road in snowy Iceland, the girls' lives collide. So Imogen has motive, and Hannah wants to find out the truth and discover the reality of this girl who's always hiding behind filters. So this sounds really, really interesting, and it sounds a little bit different from a lot of the other books that I've been reading, and I have one of her books on my shelf actually that I bought kind of pre-Yalc last year, and I met her and she's lovely. I really, really liked her. It's somewhere around here, but I think it's a sci-fi novel, which is really cool. So it shows that she's got a lot of versatility and she's a lovely person, so I'm super, super excited to read her new book. That is it for my May and June new releases. Please let me know if there's anything that is missing from this list that you want to add to it, anything that you're really excited for, or if you're really excited for these books or if you've read any of them so far. I would really love to hear what you think. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.